Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and boy, we've got a big reel to work on today. We're going to be working on the Penn International. This is the International II. It's the 80 TW series. It's a very large reel. You've probably seen reels like this on shows like Wicked Tuna and that. They're really set up for very large fish, and they're fighting reels. And this is an earlier version of the modern Penn Reels International series. We're going to take this reel completely apart. I'm going to show you how to service this, how this reel is made, talk a little bit about how it operates, and we'll show you how to tune one of these up if you happen to have one of these that you're currently fishing with. Well, before I get started, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do like fishing reels, and we've gone overboard to the top end biggest reels that I'll service, and tomorrow we may be, well, with a little vintage bait cast. You never know what's going to show up in the shop. You never know what I'm going to be working on, so the best way to stay informed about that is to subscribe and use that notification button. If you're looking for a reel, maybe you have one and this isn't the one that you're looking for, check my library. There's over 2,000 videos in there. That's a lot of fishing reels. Chances are you'll find that reel that you're looking to service, or one similar to it that will get you through that. Almost all of my repair videos are step-by-step instructions with an ongoing narrative to help you walk through that. So let's get started. This is an early version of the reel. I've worked on this type of reel before, but you know, it's always comforting to go out to the internet. In this case, this is from mysticparts.com. Get the schematic for the reel. This is, again, the International 80 TW. It shows a burst diagram of everything that's going on in that reel. We'll talk through some of that as we remove those pieces and parts and as we reinstall them. And it's there as a guide, first, so that you know what it is that you're going to be taking apart. And then secondly, if you need pieces and parts, there's part numbers there that, well, if they're still available, you can order. And finally, if there's a question you have about the reassembling, maybe the order or orientation of the piece or part, you can go there for a reference. Have a part strategy before you start working on these reels. There's a lot of parts in this reel. You're going to want to deal with that. Notice on this one, when we took that off, that it's got a beveled inset here, so that when you go to put it back on, make sure that bevel side fits upside out, if you will. And the other thing about this reel that's kind of interesting is note the location of the screws that you're taking out, because it's real easy to get confused and put screws back in the wrong place as you go to reassemble the reel. This has the bigger handle screw. This is, so you're going to use the handle screw nut that is like the 6/0 Senators and above. And I'm going to remove that handle first. One of the things on the older reels is that they have a two-part gear side case. The newer versions of that eliminated this middle inset, but we'll talk about that as we go along. Take pictures. Take lots of pictures, because you're going to be removing lots of pieces and parts. So don't be afraid to stop, take a picture, and before you progress, and then well, you'll have a reference for how you took them off, what was where and when it was, and well, that can help you out of a jam. There's a lot to remember on this reel. Don't trust your mind to do that. Use the pictures as a backup. So when I take pieces and parts off, generally I like to clean them up right then and there. I'm using, for the most part, a little kitchen scrubby with some rod and reel cleaner. In this case, I'm using Penn's rod and reel cleaner. And if there's something stubborn like dried grease on it, this is the super fine, the 40000 steel wool. It is a polishing steel wool that will help you. There is an oil port on your handle. Go ahead and put some oil in there, give it a turn or two, and then set it aside. Now, I use that parts tray for the smaller pieces and parts. Something like that handle isn't going to get lost very easily, so, well, I just kind of let that go. Next up, I'm going to remove the plate assembly here. The outer plate, this silver plate, has 3 screws, also has a bevel side to the case. And we'll just take those out. Now the parts tray that I use is a fast food container. It has 4 corners to it and 2 compartments, so we have 8 total. And something like this, because I'm working on the exterior, I'm going to put the exterior parts in corners to help me. So I've got the handle piece over there. I'm putting the 3 screws from this into the next corner. And this is going to get us started on the service of the reel. This is a preset adjuster that helps you to set the lever drag. Before you go much further, make sure that you are in the free spool position as you go to disassemble the reel. It makes it a lot easier to set that on the way back up. All right, we're going to remove this. Notice that we had a ring and a washer that belonged to the handle assembly come off. The ring goes first, the washer goes next. Put that in another corner. This is your preset piece. If you needed to service this, let's say that button was broken for some reason, this is a C-clip. You can pull that out and push the button through. There's a Teflon washer underneath here. If it's working fine, which is what this is, all you need to do is clean it. For cleaning, I generally will use a penetrating oil, some paper towels and cotton swabs and things that are not very abrasive but will help mop up the dirt and debris, and we're going to find enough of that in this reel. I'm pretty sure of that just from looking at what's underneath this lid here. So go ahead and take your time with this, but clean it up. Again, another big part that's not going to get in the way, so I'm going to put that off to the side. Here is our lever adjuster. This can lift up and out. Notice that you have a lip on your lever adjuster that's going to fit over this ring here. I'm just going to buff there's a little bit of some corrosion on here. I'm just going to buff that with this free spool. There is a Teflon washer that goes between the lever and the adjuster. Wipe it off, clean it up. Again, another part that may or may not get lost in the sauce. Don't worry about it. This is a 2-piece frame now. This piece is independent of this back piece here. And we can do this one of 2 ways. We can remove this right now if it wants to fall off. There you go. And clean this, because we know that usually if it's like this, that grease and oils and that have come in underneath. Now you'll see that the main gear is well, it's just kind of flopping around in there. Don't get overly concerned. Actually, when you go to reinstall it, you can reinstall it the same way. It will mesh with the inner pinion gear. So again, I'm just going to wipe this down. It's not unusual to see something like this. This is heavily greased. These reels, well, they go under a lot of stress. Imagine, hooking up a 2 or 3 pound, 100-pound tuna. That's going to put a lot of stress on there. Most of the time these are used for tuna. You can also get shark and other things with this reel. You can see how big it is. And well, they're going to go on big runs. And well, that's going to put a lot of stress and the like on there. Okay, this is your blank for that centerpiece. And then we have the inner part of this has also got a lot of grease and dirt and debris on it. And one of the things I do not do is I do not change any of the settings here. We've got that set up for the free spool, and I'm not going to change any of that. I have that those 2 studs facing up, these 2 studs facing where that will mount onto the free spool lever, and the inner, which you can use That's going to adjust the play or the tension on the drag washer as you go through the lever cycle. This is your preset knob, so if you want to back it off, you're going to see that there's a slot and a little stud that comes out, fits in that slot. If you want less tension, you're going to back it off. If you want more tension, you're going to put it forward. So I'd leave it right where it is because, well, it was working that way when we started. Remember what I said about paying attention to where your screws are. It's going to be easy to get confused and put screws in the wrong places when you go to reinstall. When you take these side plate screws out, what you want to do is you want to lay them on the table, make sure that they're all the same size, and you want to mark where the differences are. Now, those of you that watch my show know that I say that a lot. This reel, this reel is one of those reels where you're going to need to know where they go back in. Otherwise, you're going to go, where did that one come from? Where did this one go to? Why is this what it is, right? So I'm going to take the three that I can reach that go into the case. I'm going to take those first. There's two more that are under that ramp or ring for that lever adjuster. You can't get to them yet. But there's 5 screws in total that should be the same length. These are 3 of 1, 2, 3. And then if you look behind here, there should be 2 more right at these lug harness assemblies. These 2 screws go through and into the case. They have a little metal collar behind them. It's a spacer. You can see it right here. Be careful as you remove these screws. It's not uncommon if you're working on a table like this that you go to pull it out and that little collar decides it wants to take a walk somewhere. So what I like to do is grab that collar with the pliers, pull it off, you can see that collar, and then put it right back onto that screw. And you're going to notice that this screw is different than the others. It doesn't have a threading part going on here. It has the collar, and it goes into the far side lug nut, or lug, if you will, not the nut. It goes into that lug there. So it's easy when this ramp is off and you go to tighten up the case to take a swing at that, put one of those other screws in that hole, and then you're trying to figure out how do the other things mount. This is the other side of it. We're going to do the same thing. And what you'll notice is that's a lot smaller. So that one only anchors into the housing, but it doesn't go all the way through. So I keep those in a separate area. Then we have 2 very short screws here. They're tapered. They have the inset of the ring, and they just go into the case. So let's remove those. They're very short. And I almost had a what kind of happened there moment. Very small screws, 2 of them, and they go into the case. When you go to reinstall the ring, it's kind of easy to figure out what side the ring is because there's a taper to it, to each of these holes, that embeds the screw and it allows that lever to go fully past. So notice that those are tapered. That's the outside of the ring. I put that into my parts tray as well. And then here are the 2 screws that remain that I was saying was underneath. And these should be the same length as the ones that we took off of the bottom that was outside that ring. When you get to that last one, you're going to start to notice, you should start to notice that the case should separate because there's tension in here with that spring for the lever drag. So hold yourself firm as you do this. Just enough to enable you to get that screw out of there. I would suspect we're going to have a lot of grease inside this reel. Most of these reels get greased pretty heavily because, well, you can burn up a lot of things fighting those big fish. That should remove the case now. All of the screws are out. This does not get removed. This is your clicker or your bait alarm. And we'll show you how that works in just a moment. Let's take this up and out. When we take that up and out, we've got, yeah, clean up in aisle 7. As I mentioned, it's not unusual when you see a reel like this that there is a lot of grease on that bearing because of the heat that's generated when these fish run. So normally I will oil bearings, I won't grease them. In this reel I will grease the bearings. Alright, I'm using that paper towel again. We're going to do the cleanup. And while we're at it, we might as well talk a little bit about that click mechanism. I'm just going to use a short spray here. Just help me to get some of that last piece of grease off. So here's your click mechanism. It's actually a little ball on a spring, just like that. This one's in click mode. I'm going to flip that lever, and you can see how that retracts to shut that off. That's no longer protruding. That click ring is going to make a noise like the old damn quick reels on their bait alarms. Each one of these little ridges on this plate on the inside of the reel is going to make that click noise. That ball will bounce. You can see the track that it's ridden on. Every time it bounces out, it clicks. Okay. All right, we're pretty much clean on this case here. And as I mentioned, I tend to grease these big reels, the bearings. So let's. I know the bearings worked. I tested the reel. I don't need them, but I'm just going to go right back in and grease these up. Okay, we can set that aside. Again, that's big enough that it's not going to get lost out there. So I'm just going to put that off to the side. I probably couldn't fit it in my parts tray if I wanted to. Here's that main gear. Remember what we said? It was flopping around in there? Well, it's still flopping. I'm going to take all the old greases off the main gear. These are high quality stainless steel gears made in a time before all these fancy alloys that are out there. Everybody's got a name for them. I just saw one the other day. It was kind of interesting. So we remember the diamond knockoffs called cubic zirconium. And one of the manufacturers, I believe it's Shimano, just came out with rods that have the zirconium guides. I think they called them C something guides, made with the zirconium. How do you like that? So it may not have been famous as a jewelry knockoff, but it seems like it has a place in fishing. Notice all of these teeth are clogged with that old grease. I'm going to use my brush, pulling that through, inspecting the teeth as I do this, making sure that each one of those gaps or spaces between the teeth are all cleaned and we don't have anything stuck inside of it. One of these reels I did a long time ago had a break off, and I don't even know what it was, but I'm going to guess it was line, and a little piece just got stuck in one of these grooves, and it was the most annoying thing in terms of fishing, because every time it would come around it would click kind of a thing as a sort of a drag. Alright, that's your main gear. That's your main gear. That's your side plate. The other part to service is the spool. And we haven't done much. We didn't re-grease that main gear yet. This is the shock leader that's on there. Usually this just comes right out, so we might as well pull it out. This is your axle shaft. This axle shaft has 4 tension washers on it, not unlike, well, a Calcutta or any of the other bait feeders that you have. They are substantially thicker, but they are beveled washers that set the tension for the responsiveness on the free spool lever. All right, clean those off. Looks like this one was greased with quantum hot sauce. That's one of those purple ones. Check your well-machined, beautifully made axle shaft. And the pinion gear is actually part of the axle shaft. That's nice, you don't have to merge it. Do the same thing with the gear side here. A lot of modern lever drags have an independent pivot gear and a pressure plate. In this case, the pressure plate's on the other side of the spool. And well, now that we've done that, we can take these washers, put those back on. You don't need to grease these. I believe the grease that was on these came from the bearing in the side plate. Okay, we're just going to set that aside for a moment. Now we can remove the spool. The harness lug falls out, don't panic. There is a lot of grease inside here. And just turn it upside down and, well, clean up in aisle 7 again. We've got the old greases on that back bearing. It's shed all of those greases. They've just accumulated on the case. And you can tell it's been a while since the reel has been serviced because a lot of that grease has turned to dirt. And this is where your anti-reverse is. This is not an automatic clutch kind of driven anti-reverse. This is a double dog. And it needs a good cleaning too. So I go through a lot of paper towels with this reel. We're going to do the same thing here that we did on the other one. Use some penetrating oil just to soften up and help grab some of that old grease. Start with the paper towel, and then I'll probably go and grab a cotton swab or something. And all this reel takes time. Hopefully I have a lot of things to say about the reel. So if you're up for it, I'm kind of up for it. This is going to be a long video. This is not an easy reel to service. Let's take that cotton swab, bring that in. If you have any questions on this reel, if you have any questions on any reels, leave them in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you. And I'll do my best. If you're working on a reel and you're stuck, I'll do my best to get you back on track. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to try and answer those for you as well. All right, a lot of grease back onto this one. And when I grease it, I like to just make sure that I cover the surface. If you got too much grease, it's just going to spin out like what happened on this one. All right, just a little bit more it looks like in terms of wiping down some of the old grease inside the case. This is your chance to clean that case up. You're never going to be able to clean something like the insides of the crossbars with this, so if you have it apart, take the time to clean it. And, well, we're pretty much set there. So these dogs are opposing. They look like that. There's a spring underneath here that's going to hold the tension on it. And those are the way they set when you go to reinstall that spool. It's a big reel. I'm running out of space on my table for all the pieces and parts that came out. One of the things you want to do, as I mentioned before, is take pictures. And I'm taking pictures. I'm taking it with the video, even though I've done enough of these reels that I should be able to trust myself. I still take the pictures. And I still do the videos. And, well, that video saved me from time to time because sometimes I get a bounce. I get something that just comes off a reel, bounces, hits my deck, and then I start to worry, right? I don't know where it is. All right. I'm going to throw a rubber band over this. He had a piece of duct tape, which is fine. I'm going to put a piece of rubber band on this. Somebody said, why do you use the rubber bands? And kind of funny, but I put the rubber bands on the spool, one so that the line doesn't trap itself on the way back into the spool. And second one, there's no way to fake that you haven't had the spool out if you do a rubber band, because, well, that's the only way you can get a rubber band on the spool, is that way. All right, so that rubber band is going to hold that in place. We've cleaned up this side. We can grease that, but I'm going to wait on that because I want to turn this over. And here's the older style. Again, this is an older version of the reel, but the older style has 4 small screws that are holding this retention plate on, where the newer style has a screw cap. All right. These are very small screws. So inhale, don't exhale. Make sure you grab those screws and take care of them. Because if they jump, you're going to have fun trying to find them. It's like not enough to worry about or pay attention to when you're doing a reel like this. You got to worry about the little players going missing. Playing hide and seek on you there. Okay, that's two. Two more. They're east, west, north, and south. These last two, if I can get away with it, I want to leave them in the ring. That's because when I go back to install this, they'll help me to set the ring back up. It's a lot of hide and seek that goes on with this one. So we're going to leave them in. I'm going to push those in just to make sure that I can keep holding them. Put that into my tray just in case they fall out. And speaking of falling out, we've seen the first thing fall out now. So this is your first of two drag washer plates. This is the tension spring that's going to be loading the tension onto the drag washers to stop the reel. At first appearance, it may look like this drag washer is worn, but what's really happening here is that there is debris that is settled and kind of pushed in there. So the way to service the drag washer is to get a hard bristle brush. You can use a light metal one. Pull through, and you can see how it restores the cross hatching to that drag washer. As long as you can see the cross hatching, the drag washer is in good condition, and it's not nothing to worry about. I'm just going to go to a different one, a little bit broader. Okay, in good condition with this one. I'm going to set that aside. Next up is a plate. This is a dual-sided pressure plate. I think it's symmetrical. It doesn't matter what side goes where. And I assume that probably what happened is that first drag washer on this one probably had some grease on it, because I'm seeing grease on the plate and I'm seeing grease on the case. Because the back one is, well, that looks like a new washer. There's no way to replace the washer. The plate has to be replaced. That washer is sealed onto the plate. Let's bring that out. We may need the, there we go. We have one more bearing hiding underneath. Okay, this one you don't have to even scrape. It's kind of seen, but again, for illustration, just pull through, and any of the wear from that just gets knocked off and onto your paper towel. All right, one more cleanup, and then essentially you've serviced the spool. Again, there's a lot going on here. Take your time. As I mentioned, this will be quite a project. It's not an easy reel to surface, but it's not a difficult one either. It's everything else. You just got to take your time, have a sense of patience, have a sense of humor too. Just know you're in it for the long run. It's not a race. And it is something that you can do yourself. All right, we'll do the same thing with this bearing. We're going to load that up with healthy greasing. So far we've taken the entire reel apart. There's no more pieces and parts to take off. Okay, I'm going to turn this over while I'm at it and grease this bearing. Then I'm going to take that axle shaft that we have, and I'm going to put a little bit of grease onto the shaft itself. There's some furrows inside. Now I'm going to bring this through. Once you have that on, the pressure plate, which has been cleaned, goes on the studs. And we're going to invert the next one, but before we do that, we need that big spring. That spring goes on the shaft next. Then that plate goes on. And here's the place for that retention ring now. These are very small holes, the 4 of these, in that case. They're a pain in the neck, if you will, to get going. So I try to leave at least 2 of them in. I want to sight up one of the open holes, like here, and then go to one of the other screws and see if we can't get that screw started. We're not exactly there. This might be the hardest part of the whole reassembly process, just because there's quite a bit of accuracy needed there. I got the first one in. Again, if you sight it up and see the other hole there, then you should be in good condition to get the last 2 in. I have a small screwdriver here. I'm going to try that for these. And actually, I'm going to take the glove off, because this is the only part of this hold on reel that makes me nervous, is potentially losing these 2 little screws. So a little bit of grease onto there. Enough to get that started. Bring that in. One more. And I've had one of these screws run away on me a while ago. It was just no fun finding it. We did find it. Okay, so this is real time. I don't skip ahead, I don't drive behind. I try to do it real time because it gives you what you can expect as you go to service your reel, both in terms of realism, in terms of time, and well, some words of caution along the way. But this typically is about a 35-40 minute project. So you should budget your time to do that if you are going to service your reel. Probably need a little bit more. You want to make sure you're all set up for that. Make sure you have your cleaning equipment and your part strategies laid out and all that other good stuff. All right, we did not grease the pinion gear, so we'll do that right now. And then this piece is going to go into that adjuster, so make sure you put a little bit of grease on that. And then you want to grease this back end of the plate here, because that's going to go into the frame for your anti-reverse. So that's the next step. We can take our spool now, bring all of that back in, and with that rubber band on it, we don't have to worry about trapping that line in the side plate. All right, you may need to turn this and then do this. If you hear your anti-reverse dogs clicking away, you've done it properly. All right, coming along down that path now, we've got our main gear. I'm going to put this back in just the way you found it when you took it out. Kind of wobbling there, just laying around. Kind of a fun little way to do it. You could put this into the side plate. Line the side plate, and that's fine. Or you can just flop it around in there. I'm going to flop it around in there. Bring some grease onto the shaft, which is going to go through that second piece of the front case. All right, There you go. Easiest main gear install probably ever done. All right. Bring our side plate. We did have a runaway here with the lug, so let's bring that back in. Set that over the 2 studs. There are 2 indentations in the case here, so those are the ones that are going to go over your lugs. It's going to go this way. So I do that. I noticed that we knocked some old grease here. We'll clean that up in a moment. All right. Wide one goes here. So it says put your main gear over here somewhere. Just need to find that. There we go. All right, this is the time where you start to wonder, where did those screws come from? And if I had not told you earlier that you really need to know where they go back into, this is the time you can start putting them in random positions and then start wondering why you have spaces where there shouldn't be spaces, screws where there shouldn't be screws, and no idea how to put them back together again. So I start with the one on the bottom. Then the 2 up here are the ones that are under the rings. Compress that so that you have the nice tight fitting case. And that'll take the tension off the case. Once you go north and south on this, we did that one and then did this one. Then this is the other one that doesn't require anything there. Okay, one back here. And I believe this is the other one. So I'm just going to check that right now, make sure that we have that right. We do. So let's take the other 2. So you do need to do your homework on this, but if you did get confused, you can look at the schematic. They will show you that these 5 screws go in those slots. At least I'm hoping they do. It's always drama. Alright, we still got the main gear flopping around, so let's take a moment here to put a little bit of grease right in there. Then we can set our secondary piece in here and bring it over your main gear, lock it in like that. That's how your case goes on. All right. Ring time. This is your free spool lever release ring. You have a long screw which is going to act as the case with a spacer into that harness lug. I like to put it on right there. Raise that ring up. Get yourself started with that one. Next one up, I go to the other side. I have the spacer and the shorter screw. I'm going to put the Teflon ring on. Remember, we have a slot in this one, so you want to take the slot and get it over I guess we can got to loosen this up a little bit. Get the slot so it seats inside that ring. And we can raise this up. Center that ferrule, bring your screw in, locate the hole, bring that down. Tighten that side. Oh, fell off, so I guess it's not going to be that much of a challenge to put it back on. Sometimes it's more of a challenge than others. Bring it in, bring it over, seat it down. You have your 2 studs in that arm. You have the little beak inside. We've got 2 more screws here. Those are the offset screws. Remember, there's a taper on these. And the taper side on that ring should be facing you. It is possible to install this upside down, I believe, so just a word of caution. Let's grab the other one. All right, we're getting there. So if you've done it this way now, we've left it where it was adjusted by the owner. We haven't touched the preset adjust. That's that inner copper ring there. We did set the arm to free spool, which it always should be in when you're adjusting. So we shouldn't have any issues in terms of this operating properly once we put the rest of it on. So here is our plate. We've been spinning this around quite a bit. You need to merge this stud with the slot there. So what I like to do is kind of angle it up and kind of get it about right. Come in even. You have to hold it even like this. And then eventually, if you get that little piece in there, there you go. It'll all fall in and you'll be flush. Just keep turning that wheel until that inner slot merges with the opening in the back end of this. And we're just about a handle away and a couple of screws from seeing how we did. This is a project. They're kind of fun. All right, and remember we've got that bait alarm off. We showed you how to turn it off. We'll put that back on as part of our test. One more screw here. Then I just want to go back and make sure all the screws in the side plate are tight, because with big reels, big game fishing, vibration of the boats, everything else, there you go, that one's a little loose. Things can happen and you don't want to have them happen in the middle of a fighting of a fish. All right. We have our metal ring, the trim ring that goes over the top of that gear. We have our spacer washer. Handle is next. We've already oiled that slot in the handle. Get the handle on. Now this has got a little handle tie down clamp. I believe the same thing holds with this. You want to align a scallop in this screw with that hole, and then that clamp should probably have the same take on it. I think we got it there. Kind of looking. May require a micro adjustment, but we're pretty close. Your clamp does have that taper on the one side. See how we did. Yep, we're almost there. It looks like I need just the smallest of turns. That should do it. It's hard to see. There's a little reflection there. Yep, I think I still got to turn it just a little more. That nut was pretty tight coming off, so I guess that it's consistent, right? Might need more strength than I have. All right, now I think we got it. There we go. We have a tapered screw head that goes here. So what have we learned? We learned that big reels and small reels all require service. You all follow the same kind of pattern. You take them apart, you clean them, you inspect the pieces and parts, take good notes along the way so you know how to reinstall. And well, the rest of it is just a matter of maybe doing what we can to keep them running, right? All right, we're in free spool. This Spool should turn nice and free and easy, particularly since we've done all the greasing on it, and it does. Let's move this up to scale. Your handle is turning, which means that the reel is set. Go all the way over to max drag. This is a single speed reel. This is properly adjusted. This one's ready to go back to Greg for a whole lot of fun fishing. Well, for those of you that are still around, thank you so much for staying with us, for watching the project, learning how to service this reel, and for keeping this channel successful. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in the public domain, and for keeping us out of harm's way. Again, if you're with me and you haven't subscribed, I would encourage you to subscribe. And if you have questions, please leave those questions in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody fast friends and fishing, fun on the water, and a great day.